Hi, everybody. Diana here at Heartfelt Creative. Hope you're all having a great day. I thought I'd bring a little video to you, just kind of gadgets and gizmos and things that I found recently, tools that might help with some concerns you might have with your quilting or your sewing or your cutting. Just a couple of things that I use or new things that I've found, and I thought you might appreciate seeing them as well. So the first thing I wanted to show you is can help with your cutting. So if you see here, like on this template, I love this template, by the way. It is a Creative Grids template, Creative Grids simple 7/8 ruler. Everything is marked off in 7/8. So when you have to cut your squares and all, 4 7/8, 2 7/8, whatever that is, you've got a mark specifically for that. You don't have to count all those little lines. I love this. This one I keep right here on my cutting table at all time. But that's not what I wanted to show you. Although the lines are on here, sometimes they're hard to see. So let me flip the camera. There we go. So sometimes, I'm sorry, there's that overhead light. Hang on, I'm going to turn that overhead light. I think you can still see what I'm doing and you won't have that reflection. Yeah, I think that's better. Yeah, that's better. Okay. So as you can see on here, you've got these lines. These lines are pretty easy to see, and but sometimes when you put them on a piece of fabric, I'm just going to grab this block that I've made. Sometimes when your lines are on prints like here, it's a little harder to find. And so every time you go to square up or to cut, you kind of have to refine that line. So this is what I found. I believe I found it on Amazon. It's called highlighter tape. I might have found it at the supply store. I don't know, but it's called highlighter tape. It's yellow, like yellow highlighter is yellow. It seems to be a fairly low adhesive tack, but it stays in place really well. So I'll show you a couple that I've done it on, not this one here. I've been trimming up some blocks in a quilt that I'm doing to 8.5 inches. So I've put a piece of the tape on the 8 to mark this 8.5 inches. So I know that on this inside line here, that's exactly 8.5 inches. So when I plop it down on my block, I know exactly how I'm going to square that up. I don't have to try and count in and adjust over. I've got a great point there. I've got my diagonal line there. Works great on this one. And it's just like regular tape. You just peel it off and stick it down. And then the other one that I used this on is my, this is from Quilters Select. I love it because they have this backing on it to keep things from moving around. And I've been I was cutting some strips to cut blocks at 4.5 inches. So I put a strip right here on my 4.5 inches. So every time I laid it down right there, I knew that was where, excuse me, my 4.5 inch was. And on this one, I took a little Sharpie and I just wrote on here all the way down what it was that this measurement was for. This is 4.5 inches, and I just wrote it on here. I didn't on that other one because I hadn't thought about it yet, but that will remind me if I leave it there, what is that mark for? But when I'm done, I can just peel it right off, and it doesn't seem to leave any sticky under or on your piece. If you get any, you could use a little Gooby Gone, or baby oil works great too for getting sticky off. But it's just called highlighter tape. Is there anything else in there? It's 1/2 inch highlighter tape, a removable alternative to permanent highlighter. So I think this is made for using instead of a highlighter pen, but it works great on my templates. So that's something that might help you there in your cutting. Now what I wanted to show you is there is a product, isn't it cute? It comes in this little jar. this little jar box. Let me turn around there, like that. So what is it that's in here? It's these little two-pronged pins. Now, I know many years ago when I was in college and I worked in retail, we used these for something in the dress department. And I don't remember what anymore. So I had seen these before, but sorry, it keeps popping out of my hand. But what they're called are pretty pins, and they're by Laurie Holt from Bee in My Bonnet. This is the little, let me just show you, this part is ripped, but this is, it's a package and it's sealed around here. You get 50 double-headed pins for all your sewing needs. Now you're going to ask me, I know you're out there saying, what in the world would I use a double-headed pin for? Well, I went and found a video of Laurie's and she showed, and I'm going to show you real quick here. So I have my two pieces of my square ready to go together, right? So really the only seam on this that I need to line up is this center seam. So when I turn this over, normally I just, let me grab my magnifiers for a second. There we go. Normally I just match up and nest my seams just like that. And I use the tiny baby mini micro wonder clips right there. And then I take it to my machine and sew. That works great for me. And you could use just a straight pin. But what these little two-headed pins, pointed pins do, if you come in here and you put one of these on each side of your seam, sorry, doing this on so you can see it is a little difficult, and you just put them in here. This has a pin basically now on each side of that seam. That seam is not going to move or go anywhere. So let me go turn around here real quick. We'll even move the camera over. And we're going to sew this together. We're going to use our 1/4 inch seam. Now, Laurie says you can sew over these. Please don't. I don't sew over any pins. So now I'm right up to where that first pin is. I've lifted my foot because these are kind of tight till I get it to come out a little bit. And then I put my foot back down. And then I just go right on over it and finish sewing. Let me snip this. And if I place my pin right, this should have us, yeah, this gives us that perfect point there. Let me go ahead and iron this. And I'm going to bring it back over to the other camera. There's me. And here we go. All right, so here we go. Now, if you look at this, those 2 points of the seams are dead on. And I didn't think it would really make much difference, but I actually liked them. I mean, I still like my Wonder Clip method, but I know that that doesn't always work for folks. I mean, things that we do all the time for us doesn't always work for someone else. So this is another alternative that I find completely useful for matching up your points in your seams. They're called Pretty Pins by Laurie Holt. You get 50 of them in this cute little jar box. And I did find these on Amazon. Okay, so that's the second thing. Now the third thing I want to show you is some of you may already have this in your sewing room, especially if you do clothing, apparel, and garments, that sort of thing. Just reflattening my piece here. So here I go. I've set my seam, right? Now I'm going to flip it and iron it press it flat, right? And then I'm going to put that piece of wood on it. What in the world is that thing, Diana? This is called a Tailor's Clapper or sewing clapper. It's a piece of hardwood. And what the hardwood does is it absorbs the heat from the seam that you just pressed while putting a little bit of weight. I'd say this probably weighs a pound maybe on that seam and flattens it. And it causes the seam to stay flat and it dries it quicker because it absorbs the heat. You don't have to leave it on there a long time. I'm just doing that. So now we have a nice, really flat seam. Let me show you. I did this with it, this half square triangle. Look at how nice and flat these seams are. So you just, once you've pressed, you just lay it on there. You can put your hands on there. You don't have to press, just put your hands on there. And it gives you a nice flat seam by absorbing that heat. And so how this helps is that when you pressed your seam open, or when you've pressed your seam, you can, when it's still warm, it can move on you. It can stretch a little on you. When you get that nice and flat and get that heat out of there quickly, it'll stay nice and flat for you. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, that is a piece of hardwood. These are not, in my opinion, inexpensive. I think this was roughly $30, but it is a piece of oak. I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's a good piece. But here's my trick. I've been using this one for years. I went to my local hardware store and they had a bin of scraps and I found a piece. I found this piece. It was already cut and everything. And it was nice and clean on all the sides. Didn't have any dirt or anything on it. And it is like this. It weighs, I'd say this one probably weighs more like a pound and a half. It's a little heavier even. It's a good hardwood. And I've been using that as my clapper for years. I want to say $1, but my mind wants to tell me it was 60 cents for some reason, like it was really inexpensive. So you could try and find that at a local hardware store, just a good block of wood. I'll tell you that it is 1 3/4 inches by 3.5 by 10. Those are the dimensions. And that is roughly the dimensions of that clapper too. You can get clappers that are actually bigger than these, but for my quilting, that's about all I need. So I have these two pieces and they work really well. And I use them quite a bit in my quilting. And then of course, nice, everybody can always use a nice wool pressing mat and a nice little travel iron that I'm going to turn off now. And we will flip the cameras back around one more time. There we go. So those are the 3 products that I wanted to show you that can help you with your accurate cutting, with your accurate piecing of your seams, and with getting those seams nice and flat and keeping your blocks nice and flat. So I hope that helps. I found all of those things on Amazon. You might be able to find like Laurie Holt's things. If you have a fabric shop that sells Laurie Holt's products, then I'm sure you could find hers at a fabric shop. My fabric shop doesn't carry them. So I found them through Amazon. Clappers, a lot of times you can find those at fabric stores too. I've had mine for a long time, but I know you can find those online. Okay, so that's everything. Have a great day. You can always leave me a comment or a question here in the comment section, and I'll see you again next time. Bye now.